Welcome to today's review. If you've been following my channel, you know I appreciate a good titanium watch. This one takes the classic Seiko formula, puts it into a thinner and lighter package with a quartz movement in a titanium case and bracelet. It's also got BGW9 Lume on the dial, a sapphire crystal, all for less than $100. Let's jump in and take a closer look. We'll compare it to some other titanium watches side by side, so you get an idea of what the case finishing looks like. I'll also show you this watch on some other leather and rubber straps, give you a lume shot and wrist shot as always, so let's jump in and take a closer look. Let's start off with the dimensions. This one has a 37mm case diameter. It's got a lug tip to lug tip of 45.2. Thickness is just 8.7mm, up to that nice flat sapphire crystal. It's got a 20mm lug width, and the bracelet tapers down to 18mm, and the clasp goes back up to 19.5. On this titanium bracelet, it weighs in at just under 60 grams, so nice and light. Now, speaking of bracelet, let's jump in and take a closer look at what I think is probably the biggest disappointment on this watch. So this bracelet has a lighter finish, first of all, than the case itself. So as you can see, definitely a noticeable mismatch. The end links are hollow. So as you can see, the fitment with the case is not perfect. The main issue with the bracelet is the construction. So it's got hollow links. So as you can see, sizing them is easy, but they will pull hairs, especially if you have hairy arms. See, the articulation between those links is basically non-existent, so the bracelet essentially just keeps its shape, and it doesn't really drape very nicely and contour to the wrist. Now I realize, I'm criticizing a very cheap watch, and I would not expect it to be an amazing bracelet, but I will show it next to a couple of other hollow link constructed bracelets. So here's a Seiko one, for example. So if I just put this down for a second, by the way, this is how it sits. Unless you set it down like this, it will just keep its shape. So again, this information is probably more helpful for somebody who's never had a hollow link bracelet before. So if you've had one of these type of Seiko 5s, you know what these bracelets feel like. Because of this stainless steel material, they're even more uncomfortable, just maybe because they're heavier. And this one, I have it on this watch just to show you, but I don't wear it on this watch. This was pretty much a throwaway bracelet. Same type of construction, same type of lack of articulation between the links, so you can't get a very good fit or a very comfortable fit on the wrist. The other one I will show you is an old pulsar watch. This one, of course, the links have been stretched out a bit, but it does have these same hollow links. Folded links. I keep saying hollow. What I mean is folded. So the folded links on this one, it is a Jubilee style, so of course the links are a lot smaller, but this one does articulate and is more comfortable in drapes and contours to your wrist, and it just fits a lot better instead of being really stiff like we have on the Berny. So it is possible to have a better bracelet construction even with these folded links. That's why I'm showing you this one as an example. So let me put that back down and continue on. So hollow end links, not great. The shade doesn't match the case, and we've got these folded links which do not give a great fit. The other problem is the clasp. Of course, it's a pressed clasp, and what you'll notice here is I have it on the second micro adjust, and it does leave a pretty noticeable gap. So if you put it on the third or fourth, there will be an even bigger gap between the bracelet and the clasp. The fold over is not super secure feeling. It's a little bit loose. Doesn't feel great when it snaps into place. And it doesn't sit flush with the top of the clasp. Hopefully that is coming through on the camera. That being said, when it's on your wrist, and I'll put it on now, there isn't any sharpness or roughness that you feel. So there's no discomfort from the actual material. For me, the discomfort was more noticeable because of the construction, and it kind of doesn't sit great on my wrist, and when it moves around it pulls hairs. That's probably the biggest concern, besides it feeling cheap, of course, and not looking that great, was the fact that it does pull hairs, and the clasp kind of sits up a little bit, sticks up a bit too much for my liking. So I give them credit for including a titanium bracelet, but definitely be prepared to put this bad boy on a strap. And the case and the dial, there's lots of great things here that we'll discuss, but let's just get it out of the way. Bracelet is not that great. And again, if you don't have hairy arms, you could probably rock this all day long and not have too many issues, because it's so light, and the titanium doesn't react with the skin as much as stainless steel. It can still be comfortable if you don't have hairy arms. So that was my long story on the bracelet. Well, the dial itself is very legible because there's an excellent sapphire crystal with clear AR coating. Legibility is just fantastic. Really great crystal picked out by Berny, and it sits basically flush. You can slightly feel the sapphire crystal with that bezel, and the bezel is polished, as you can see, which I'm not a huge fan of. I think if they had kept it as a matte finish like the case, it would have looked better. But looking at the dial, we've got that nice dark blue color with almost stark white, pretty much as close as you can get to stark white printing on the dial. The printing quality is excellent. There is Lume BGW9. We'll take a Lume shot towards the end. Not amazing Lume, but definitely impressive at this price point. We've got a date cutout at 3 o'clock. It's a little bit on the smaller side, but I think that's okay. It doesn't cause too much of a distraction from the rest of the dial. We've got matte white finished handset. The seconds hand has a nice red tip and a lollipop style counterbalance. The handset has a off-white appearance on the Lume, and the rest of the printing on the dial, like I said, has a more stark white finish. The tone of that blue color I think is terrific. The amount of text on this dial seems perfectly fine. You've got the Berny and the logo below 12 o'clock, and then you've got the quartz titanium above the 6. You've got a nice matte finished rehot, and that, along with this blue dial color and that nice gray finish on the titanium, gives it a really nice toolish appearance. And I'll bring in a Loris field watch for comparison. So here is a 37mm Loris next to the Berny, and as you can see, the Loris has a lighter finish on the titanium, and that actually makes it a closer match to the bracelet, but still not quite perfect. The Loris does have 18mm lug width, and it's about the same thickness. And if I just turn it around, and next to the stainless steel, you can see what the tone of the titanium looks like as compared to the Seiko. The Berny looking like a much darker gray, much more of a toolish appearance. Here is the watch on a nice brown strap. This is a cheapo Wokey strap from Amazon. I'll leave a link in the description. But just to give you an idea of how it looks like on brown leather, and I'll throw it on the wrist. There we go. Already, I think, an improvement over the titanium bracelet. By the way, this is what the inside of the lugs looks like. And as you can see, I've already got some scratches on it with some strap changes. And you can see the case back. This is a strap that I've been wearing it on mostly. It's a Dan Henry Tropic strap. And this is has the appearance of looking like a leather strap, but of course it's made of a very comfortable FKM rubber. Really enjoying that when I have little kids at home, so my hands are always getting dirty and my watches are always getting dirty, so I like to be able to rinse them out at the end of the day. So having rubber straps is very important for someone in my position. And this Dan Henry one has been amazing. It's very supple, very comfortable, but it's not too thick, so it works perfectly for a watch like this. Since it's only 8.8 millimeters thick, you have to be cognizant of that. It's not going to look good with very thick leather or rubber straps. I would say in this price range, I got this Eddie's Dive recently. These two really, to me right now, are the king of the highest value, the best bang for your buck. On AliExpress, overall, the Eddie's Dive is tough to beat. It's got the sweeping Mega Quartz movement. Of course, it's got the classic, Explorer design. Overall, I would say probably this is the winner. Again, I'm only showing this side by side because the prices are so similar. But for titanium in a thin package like this, at a very compact 37 case size, this is a great choice also, the Berny, for a lot of wrists. So let's end it off with a Lume shot. So I'll include the Eddie's Dive and I'll throw in the Seiko 5 that I had earlier, just for a comparison of what the BGW9 looks like on the Berny. Hopefully you guys found this review helpful, and make sure you do subscribe to my channel as I'll be posting a ton of more content. And make sure you do check out some of my other reviews. So here is a Lume shot after being charged up by my studio lighting. So as you can see, the Berny doing pretty well against the Eddie's Dive. I would say it's slightly brighter Lume than the Eddie's Dive. The handset is nice and bright, and all of the indices are nice and evenly lumed. And here it is next to the Seiko 5. Of course, Seiko with the legendary Lumibright looks fantastic, especially when fully charged up. But the Berny is holding its own. Of course, the Berny has a lot more lume application. And in case you were interested in that Loris field watch that I showed earlier, it does have a pretty decent lume actually on the handset, and it looks like Seiko Lumibright. Alright guys, thanks for watching. Now make sure you check out my other reviews.